And the context, the historical, more immediate context of what happened on the 7th of October, and especially the Israeli reaction to what happened on the 7th of October, is a history of 75, I would say even 95 years, by which the political movement of Zionism on the ground in Palestine tries to implement the idea that is at the heart of every settler colonial project we know in the world, which is to eliminate the native population. How you eliminate the native population depends on the historical moment that you try to implement it, on the capacity, on the circumstances. So in the 1920s, when the first act of ethnic cleansing occurred in Palestine, it was very limited. It was limited because the Zionist movement was not very strong, and the British government was still responsible for law and order, but it was quite a successful project given the circumstances. So in the mid-1920s, from two very important areas in Palestine, Wadi Hawaras and Marj ibn Amr, the Zionist movement succeeded in persuading the British to change the law, the land laws, the land regime in Palestine, in order to claim that land that they have bought, usually from absentee landlords in Beirut, was not only theirs, but they did not have to respect the Ottoman custom that because these lands were huge and on them there were villages that were there for 1,000 years, that they had the right to evict these villages. So the first victims of this ethnic cleansing in 1926 were 11 Palestinian villages in Wadi Hawaris and Marj ibn Amr. And what is important, this was done according to a European law of ownership. At that time, it was important for the Zionist movement to say our dispossession of the Palestinians is according to the civilized law of the land regime in Europe. And very soon after that, the Palestinians realized that these immigrants that they have received taught them how to cultivate the land because they have no idea how to cultivate the land, and received them because they really thought they were poor refugees that needed a sanctuary, a place, a safe place. When the Palestinian movement began to resist this kind of method of taking land through purchase and went on uprisings and so on, this kind of land purchase stopped. And by 1948, and this is important to remember, the Zionist movement was able to purchase less than 6% of Palestine. And this is the moment when the Zionist leadership decided that this kind of method of buying land is not going to work. And they opted for removing by force the Palestinians. Within 1 year, they planned to expel every Palestinian from any part of Palestine that they could take over. So they wanted as much of historical Palestine as possible with as few Palestinians as possible. They did it 3 years after the Holocaust. And that immunized them from even, I would say, criticism from more progressive elements in Europe and the United States that probably would have otherwise felt a bit uncomfortable about this kind of expulsion. But because of what happened in Europe and the way the Zionist diplomacy very cleverly utilized what happened in Europe to almost say, as one of the famous diplomats of the Zionists said, well, we created a small injustice to rectify a much bigger injustice. And that kind of immoral explanation would explain to us why the very few voices that thought that what was happening in Palestine in 1948, the Nakba, the ethnic cleansing, was immoral and should have been contested or at least rebuked. That's why these voices died out very, very quickly, because the Holocaust memory, I should say, was used in order to silence. This is not just an historical chapter. The Holocaust memory is used today to silence us, not allow us to tell what happened.